Hey, you know how hair looks after shampooing? Well, this Protein 29 hair groom puts back the control that shampooing takes out. You know what? It works. You just put it on your hair while it's wet, then comb. Takes out tangles, makes combing easier. And it grooms not just on top, but way down. So when your hair dries, it's under control. Protein 29 hair groom. You know, this stuff is really different from all those other hairsprays. Puts back the control that shampooing takes out.
How's the prime rib?
Oh, we're in line for vegetables.
Vegetables?
Yes, the Green Giant stole the meal with fancy vegetable casseroles, frozen in bacon-served trays, like delicious Hungarian cauliflower and sour cream sauce, with a crisp crumb topping. 5 Green Giant brand frozen vegetable casseroles. Vegetables so good, they steal the meal.
Delicious! Yeah, but look at the line for seconds.
Ho-ho.
Esso. We're changing our name, but not our stripes.
Television 9, your eyewitness news station.
All the other states in which we have selected precinct reports so far, President Nixon is leading. It seems to be a margin building to an all-time record landslide. Senator McGovern has yet to win a single state. There are no electoral votes in his column. In the tabulated popular vote, it looks like this: 6,209,000 for the president, 3,137,000 for Senator McGovern. The president dropped a little bit in the percentages as these figures have been tabulated and got up to that 12% of the precincts in so far. He's down now to 66% to 33 for Senator McGovern. Exactly a 2-to-1 margin. John Schmitz, the American Independent Party candidate, that was the ticket on which George Wallace ran in 1968, has just around 1% of the votes so far, 114,000 votes. The states that the president has won so far include all but 2 of the 13 in the once solid Democratic South. The 2 states that we have no reports on yet are Arkansas and Louisiana, but the president has won Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and West Virginia, and all of them by very sizable majorities, too. None of them under 65%, most of them over 70%. He has won in the Middle West, Illinois and Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, North Dakota, Ohio. In the East, he's won Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and West Virginia. None of the western states are in yet, and that gives us an opportunity again to remind you that while these sample precincts and the fast returns provided to us by the News Election Service that is a joint effort that provides all of the networks and the press services now, those fast returns plus our selected precincts enable us to tell you that the president has won election with an overwhelming majority, it would appear. We must remind you that polls are open in 10 states yet, will be for some time, that there are still Senate and gubernatorial races that will count out there. The margin of the president's victory is an important matter. There are 7,000 state legislators to be elected across the country tonight, 500,000 local offices all the way from mayor to dog catcher, and a lot of important issues on the ballot, bond issues and other matters on the ballots in these states. So it is important to get out and vote, regardless of the fact that we are able now to share with you the kind of knowledge that in the past only a few old pals sitting around in those back rooms with the cigar smoke heavy and the little black books were able to do. That's all we do with this vote profile analysis, is to tell you what they used to know only to themselves, that with a certain number of votes in from a certain number of precincts, they knew who was going to win. Well, now you know as much as they used to know alone. In the Senate, the importance has been there whether President Nixon could pull in at least 5 extra Republican senators in order to give him a majority in the Senate. Here is who has won so far in the Senate. You see that list as they roll by there just at that moment. We just added onto that list West Virginia's Randolph and Kentucky's Huddleston. I thought we had them before, but I guess we just put them on the list. There they are again. Those are the Republicans who have won, but they have not taken any seats yet from the Democrats. The Democrats have not taken any seats from the Republicans yet. And so far, it looks like the Senate will be made up of about the same proportion as at the moment, with the Democrats with a 5-vote majority. In the House races, they are going much the same way so far, although we don't have enough races in yet to give you a clear indication of that. In the House, with 435 seats up, that's all the House voting seats. The Republicans have won 32 so far, and the Democrats 81. The Republicans need to pick up 39 seats in the House in order to win a majority there. For a reaction to President Nixon's huge win tonight, Michelle Clark and Dan Shore with the presidential counselor Robert Finch.
It's kind of fitting in a way that at the moment that the word has come here that the president in projections is over the top, the man who should be sitting with us is probably President Nixon's oldest friend in politics, the man who ran his unsuccessful 1960 campaign, has just flown in with the president, who will be here later tonight, Bob Finch, former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare. Mr. Finch, as you traveled with the president, what was he expecting and what was his mood?
Well, let me just describe what was happening on the plane. Unlike, say, 1968, Dan, when the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, everyone on Air Force One was relaxed, optimistic, and it was just a different world.
Were there predictions being made?
No, there wasn't even.
You can tell now.
Ordinarily you have bets about what will the margin be, and it's not that kind of thing at all.
You mean nobody said 48, 49, 50 states?
Well, we'd all pretty well weighed in with our votes. Our expectations, 48 states, was my prediction, Herb Klein's prediction, and others. I think we'll stand by that.
Did he speculate at all as to what this kind of landslide victory would be?
No.
How did this differ for you from 1960?
Well, of course, to the fall history, the early returns from New England, which was Kennedy's home bailiwick, showed strong margins for him, and I think the commentators were predicting a Kennedy sweep. But as further west we came, it became obvious it was going to be a closer and closer election. And of course, it wasn't until the following morning that the very, very close nature of it finally became apparent. Less than one vote per precinct. So that was a real cliffhanger, and a great deal of anguish and emotion was involved in that.
Do these results tonight pretty well settle it that you'll be running in California for office yourself on these very long coattails?
This didn't decide that, but I will certainly go back and look at governor and senator. But that, I think what the president has done here gives the Republicans an enormous opportunity. If we can, his leadership and the way he tried to carry the issues forward, and it was his plan, it was his leadership. Now it's a question of whether the party can measure up to what he's offering.
As you were saying, governor or senator?
I have to go back and talk to a lot of people, including my wife, and I'm going to...
But there's no question that 2 years from now you will be running for office in California.
The probabilities are good.
President Finch, can you tell us...
Walter? I wonder, do you have any theory as to why, with such an overwhelming victory for President Nixon, there don't seem to be... he doesn't seem to be carrying along a lot of the senatorial candidates?
Well, it's a complicated thing, who gerrymandered the districts and so on, but I believe that because the foreign policy issue was very overriding in this, and that is uniquely in the hands of the president, and people have confidence in his ability, his understanding of this globe, that weighed very heavily, and they don't attach the same importance with regard to the Congress or obviously the state houses or even the Senate, which does have the function of ratifying treaties.
Did the president shortchange the Republican Party in amassing a coalition around himself?
In no way. All of us as surrogates, as cabinet members, were out campaigning. His family was out. He took pictures with all the candidates, wrote letters. He did everything a man could do and still do the job as president. And because he's had a very heavy burden to carry with the Vietnam negotiations. I think that's it.
The Dan
here, Walter, is that they just flashed on the screen that CBS says they've won New York.
Dan, they got the word kind of late down there.
Yeah, It was just up on the board, Walter, that
the reason for all
President
the
Nixon
cheering,
won
as I
New
was
York.
saying,
That's
Walter,
what the reaction
they
is
have a
about.
screen here where they pick up news from the networks, and they just happen to pick up from CBS that President Nixon has won New York, which has somehow resulted in the loudest cheer we have yet heard here tonight. As you know, the President and Vice President Agnew will be here themselves in a couple of hours to join this celebration.
Dan, I'm afraid they didn't get that from New York. We haven't yet, from CBS, we haven't yet said that New York has been won by President Nixon, but if they want to go along on that basis, perhaps they can.
Well, what they're saying exactly, if I can read it to you, is President Nixon wins New York, CBS says.
Well, all right. Let them live in the happiness of having won New York from CBS. We're still counting votes and sampling our sample precincts in New York. There's no question that President Nixon is winning an overwhelming victory across the nation, though, and adding New York will just be that much lagniappe, as we used to say in New Orleans, for the Republicans and President Nixon. We can say that I should have said a moment ago. Let me correct something I kind of booted around there in that fast rundown of the Senate races won. The Democrats have picked up a Senate race in Kentucky. Walter D. Huddleston defeated the former Governor Louis Nunn in Kentucky, according to our CBS News estimate. A very close race there, 51% to 49 we think the final vote will be, and that takes away the Republican seat that was held by John Sherman Cooper. CBS News coverage of Election Night 72 will continue in a moment.
She's a young lady. She's a little girl. She likes to run and jump. She likes to wear pretty grown-up dresses. JCPenney has a whole new collection of young holiday fashions for her, so we can make you both happy for $5 to $15. Yes, she wants to look grown-up, but we know she's still a romping kid. At JCPenney, we know what you're looking for.
Civilized like an elegant woman, savage like a cat.
Mercury Cougar XR7, like nobody else's car. Buckets, tachometer, automatic floor shift, V8, all standard. No car combines more luxury and sportiness than Cougar XR7.
It's like nobody else's car.
Built better to give you more. At the sign of the cat.
Democrats also have picked up a state house in Delaware where the Republican governor had retired. Democrat Sherman Tribbett have defeated the Republican candidate Russell Peterson. By our CBS News estimate, the final figure will be 54% for Tribbett, 46% for Peterson. For a reaction now to President Nixon's victory, Bruce Morton is at Senator McGovern's headquarters at the Coliseum in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Walter, I don't think most of this crowd here has heard the news yet. It's taken them a long time to get in. Everyone's had to be searched by the Secret Service at the door. And once in, there's a lot more noise from the crowd than from the relatively few television sets scattered about here. This is really more like a picnic or a church social than an election night party. From the McGovern staff point of view, though, although a number of them are in Washington tonight, the really surprising news didn't come with those early calls. They never expected to win Georgia or Alabama. The really surprising things have come in, for example, some of those big eastern and middle western states. States where McGovern really campaigned hard. He went to Illinois, I think, something like a dozen times. Went to Ohio so often that one man on the press plane told a Cleveland reporter once he ought to lead a story for the third consecutive day George McGovern did not campaign here. He really worked those states, and he's lost those. Not just lost them, but by big margins, things like 60-40 splits. That is the kind of thing the campaign had not expected. They thought they'd at least run closely there. McGovern himself is...
Runner cycles, only at JCPenney. They have everything you're looking for, including the right price. At JCPenney, we know what you're looking for. motorcycle.
Yeah, I don't know just when he will be, but my colleague Bob Schieffer is at the hotel where the senator is staying. Bob?
Bruce, as you and they may not well be aware of the CBS estimate declaring President Nixon has won re-election. We'll find out later for sure if that's so, but it is in line with what Press Secretary Dick Doherty told us earlier this evening. He said that the senator planned to eat a steak and then planned to take a nap through the evening. The only reaction by Senator McGovern came somewhat earlier this evening from George Cunningham, kind of an indirect reaction. Cunningham, his administrative assistant in his Senate office, asked what his comment was. He said, "What is there to say? We just have to sit and watch." He said, we'll watch Pennsylvania and New York. If they are bad, then things may be a little wicked. Very little activity, actually, here at the hotel. Only about 100 people here. They rented a hall just over the way there for a celebration. Nobody in the hall. About the only activity here and the only crowd gathered here gathered just right around us when the TV lights were turned on and people came out to see what was going on. So that's about the situation here, Walter.
Well, the Senate races have just balanced out with our CBS News estimate from Oklahoma that the Republican candidate there has taken the seat that had been held by the retiring Senator Fred Harris, a Democrat. So the Democrats have won one Republican seat from the Republicans. The Republicans have won one from the Democrats. Let's get more on those southern races now from Roger Mudd.
Walter, with the Oklahoma race apparently decided, it would mean that the GOP has picked up, made a net gain of 2 Senate seats in the South. But of course that is far short of what the Republican Party needs for control. Just looking at our southern map, we can see that only one state is now out, and that is Louisiana. The polls are closed there, or will be closing soon. As yet, there is no trend in Louisiana. The president has won 11 states in the South. He is leading in Arkansas. No trend from Louisiana.
Roger, may I interrupt just for a moment? Massachusetts, another one of the big states, one that it was thought that Senator McGovern had a chance to win. He has indeed won. According to our VPA estimate, Senator McGovern will come out in Massachusetts with about 54% of the vote to President Nixon's 46% of the vote. And that is the first electoral vote to drop to Senator McGovern. It also means with those 14 votes in Massachusetts that the Alf Landon defeat of 1946 or 1936 will not be exceeded by McGovern tonight.
Well, that's small consolation, isn't it? Because for the first time since 1956, a Republican has now carried Texas, and you can't imagine what that means to the Republican Party. Kennedy carried it in 60, Johnson carried it in 64, and it was the only southern state in 1968 which Hubert Humphrey carried. Those are 26 electoral votes from Texas. The president himself made 2 trips to Texas to visit John Connally on the former Treasury Secretary's ranch, and of course Connally himself headed Democrats for Nixon. So after about 15 years, Texas has again gone Republican. In the Mississippi presidential race, our vote profile analysis shows that the president has won there 77 to 23. The popular vote shows the president 72,000 to George McGovern's 18,000. In the Oklahoma presidential race, the winner there, President Nixon, 78% to 22%. The popular vote, 20% of it in, showing the president 181,000. That is a 78% margin over George McGovern. In the North Carolina presidential race, 13 electoral votes. President Nixon there is the winner. Our vote profile analysis shows he will win by 73%. And in the Kentucky senatorial race, there the GOP has dropped a seat. Dropped it to Walter Huddleston, 515,000 to Louis Nunn's 475,000. At the last week of the campaign, the president got a call for help from Louis Nunn. The president went into Ashland
but it apparently has not brought that much benefit to Louis Nunn. In the Virginia Senate race, incumbent Democrat William Spong has got trouble. With 34% of the vote in, he is trailing Republican William Scott by about 15,000 votes.
Roger?
Yes, sir.
We can now put New York in President Nixon's column. 59% of the vote to McGovern's 41%. And that takes a usually solid Democratic state on the presidential races, at any rate, into the Republican column for the first time in a long time.
We can go back to the cheering then in Washington, and it will be authentic. And finally, just to clean up this Southern report, in Oklahoma, as you reported earlier, the retiring Fred Harris, holding a Democratic seat, has yielded to Ed Edmonston, who is now apparently lost to Dewey Bartlett. So the Southern net gain is 2 for the Republicans.
CBS News coverage of Election Night 72 will continue in a moment. Roger, how do you get those?
You've got responsibilities. You want to invest for the future. Payne Weber knows it's tough to decide what's best. Should you buy stocks for long-term capital gains possibilities or for income? What about municipal bonds or corporate bonds or mutual funds? Get professional help with your investments. Talk to Payne Weber. After all, it's your money. You'd better know how to invest it. Payne Weber helps you know.
In this building, race cars as revolutionary as the STP Novi and the famous turbine cars were put together. What we learn here can help your family car, too. Take oil filters. The leading 3 have a single filtering element, like this. But we've added something extra. A filter in a filter for extra engine protection. Next time you change oil, ask for the STP double oil filter. A filter in a filter to double clean your oil.
This is the new JCPenney washer built to handle up to 18 pounds of heavy clothes, or to machine wash fabrics you normally wash by hand. Just set the dial to the right wash program, it'll do the rest. And this is our new matching dryer with a choice of temperature settings and a special timer. When it's through, it tells you. All totally simple to use, and the price is our best deed of the year. At JCPenney, we know what you're looking for.
And so President Nixon, with 16% of the vote in, is still holding on to a long lead over Senator McGovern, 8,152,000 to 4,257,000 for McGovern. That's a little drop in his popular percentage, now down to 65% to 34%. The president has won 353 electoral votes for re-election. We'll be back shortly with more results from Election Night 72. Now your local stations and their races. This is Walter Cronkite at CBS News Election Headquarters.